Hi, welcome back once again in the same day to another Dylan Rounds video. Now, welcome if you're currently in the live chat. As said, as we go along in this video, you can share your own thoughts, opinions, and reactions to the stuff presented, as well as talk about other stuff as well. Now, an important point to make before we continue. Yes, I did make a video earlier on in the day covering the latest updates and progression in the case. If you haven't already, make sure to watch that video either right now or preferably after this video, okay? There will be a link in the comment section and there should be a clickable link top corner of the screen. So make sure to do that after this video, okay? Now, in this clip, in this video, what I'm going to be sharing with you is we're going back. We're going, I don't know if it's literally from the very start or a bit further on, but it's to do with the missing person posters of Dylan Rounds. You know, you would have seen some yourself, maybe on Facebook, maybe on YouTube as a thumbnail, etc. I've seen one or two myself, but what about the others? Maybe there's one in a different language, in a different state. Maybe there was one from the very beginning, and then there's one most recent. And that's what I'm going to present to you, a collection of them. You might be wondering why. Well, first of all, credit to Mello, is it 77? Mello, who ended up, giving me access to the screenshots of these missing person posters, as well as credit to Julie for providing the odd additional one as well, better quality visuals. Reason why is because I couldn't access Facebook because I don't have a Facebook account and I don't have to set up all this and all that. I mean, you can scroll down so much on Facebook, but you get locked out if you go past a certain limit or something, or a certain amount of time spent on it. So it is a bit annoying, but there are ways around it. So as I said, credit to Mello and Julie, okay? So the key thing is about these, like pictures of the posters, is the information presented on them. And, like when you said about going back in time to fill in the gaps, see if there's any progression that can be made, clarify, see if anything's been missed. This could be an example of an important part which has been missed because not many people seem to bring it up, okay? And it's to do with the dates and maybe certain information as well on the posters. They differ in terms of when Dylan went missing. Bit odd, isn't it? When it's like, oh, maybe he went missing this day. No, it was this day. No, it was then. It was there. It was this. It was that. It was this. People can't seem to come up with a consensus of an understanding of when exactly Dylan went missing, then you could say, what is true within the case? What are you supposed to believe? From my point of view, I'm not from that country. I can't visually see what's going on. I wasn't there to visually see or hear auditory to when Dylan specifically went missing. All I know is he was reported missing on the 30th. The last time he made contact with someone over the phone was with the grandmother, and that was the 28th of May, okay? What we're going to do, we're going to look at these missing person posters, go through each one, compare, contrast between them, and see do they tie in true with what we originally knew of, okay? Let me show them now. So this is the first missing person poster, and as it says, Última vez visto, which I guess was last seen on, date provided, the 5th, the 26th, 2022. Kind of interesting that. Further down, it does give descriptions. As you know, the language itself is not in English, as it says, los vehículos de Dylan fueron encontrados en sí, ya en lucin, lo único que falta es su cartera y sí. Se sospecha de juego sucio se están lavando. Basically, it's Spanish, okay? So what do we need to look out for on here when it comes to looking at the other posters? Well, let's say the reward money, because first of all, it says $20,000, but as we know, it went up to $100,000. So that changed with time. Now, why? Why did it go from 20,000 to 100,000? Was that because of desperation? Was that to entice the general public in trying to look for Dylan? You know what I'm saying? Was 20,000 not good enough? Not enough? So they thought, if we raise it to 100,000, then maybe we can get more people from the public to come in. Maybe. But what else do we need to look out for? Just the descriptions below. So Edad, his age, 19 years old. Altura, his height, 5'10". Peso, weight, 160 pounds. Ojos, which is either the hair or eye colour, marrones. Perlo, marron, which is brown. Marron means brown. So I guess marrones means brown eyes because there is more than one. Don't worry, this isn't Spanish speaking class, unless you want it to be. Anyway, as said, you look at those bullet points and we can refer back to them as we go along, okay? And this is the other thing. We can also take into mind the missing person report on Namus. On Namus, they stated Dylan was 6 foot and about 95 to 145 pounds. Very different to what you see on screen right here, because on here it says 5'10", 160 pounds. And I do think this poster was a while ago. And then on the Namus report, then they entered in the data in which he was taller and weighed less. That makes no sense. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense, does it? And linking back, as I said, the date he went missing on here, it seems to say the 5th, 26, 2022. But on the 26th, or at least on the 27th in addition, Dylan was last seen at Montello Bar, Saddle Sore Bar. So apologies in brief if I got the translation wrong. It says ultimo vez visto. Does that mean last seen? Maybe that's what they mean. Okay. Yeah, visto, I think means visit or saw. I can't remember. If this means last seen on the 26th, that kind of makes sense because, you know, he was at Saddle Sore Bar. But there was also reports saying on the 27th he went to the bar. So there's differing dates there, and Candice mentioned that in a Facebook post at one point. So just take that into mind. I think we might as well just move on to the next slide and see what that's about. So, to be fair, they virtually look the exact same. The only difference is one's in Spanish, one's in English. $20,000 reward, age 19, 5'10", 160 pounds, brown hair and eyes. The same exact thing on there. But what about the dates though? Let's just see. So on here, it's stated last seen the 5th, the 28th, 2022. And yet this poster says last seen on the 26th. Differing dates, right? So who saw him on the 28th? Who? Like, was it, was it Jim Brenner? Because he was on the land and would have seen Dylan? Because who else would? I mean, you look back onto this one, the 26th, yes, he was last seen at Saddle Sore Bar. There would have been witnesses, the bartender, the bar owner, the people within the bar at the time, and the locals of Montello out and about, they would have seen Dylan enter the place. So that all makes sense. But on the 28th, when Dylan was on the farm, supposedly, and he made that phone call to the grandmother, you can't say that's when you last saw him because you didn't visually see him there. He told you he was on the farm, but you didn't see for yourself. So it should be worded as last heard from on the 28th, not last seen. Last seen on the 26th, supposedly, at the bar, because there was witnesses. Last heard from on the 28th. Do you understand how this language can just transform the whole case? It can lead to a spiral of confusion, which isn't helpful. So with all that in mind, let's move on to the next slide and see what else shows up. So on this one, Katie Rounds Wells, I suppose this might have been shared or something on Facebook, was last seen in Lucin, Utah, near the Utah-Nevada border. If you have any information, please contact us ASAP. Also, please share this. Okay, so this is yet a different thing. Was last seen in Lucin, but who saw him? And he was near the Utah-Nevada border. So if we're talking about that border, you've got the mountain range, which goes all the way down like a spine, as you saw in my map analysis. And further down there, it approaches onto the highway and then a bit more east, Wendover. Okay, southeast, Wendover. So it must be a bit further up north towards bordering the Wash, the railway tracks, north, and then on the left-hand side going west, that's where the border is, and where that rock formation, the mountain formation ends. Okay, what was he doing there? I mean, from when I did the map analysis, I think there was the odd farm or something nearby, but it wasn't Dylan's. So what was he doing up there? Was he just driving through? Was he walking around? What is he doing over that way? And who saw him? It's a big question. Who saw Dylan at the border? And what was he doing there? If any of you know, feel free to leave a comment down below. As I said, some of these posters might be outdated, but I'm just going through each one to see if we can fill in a timeline, to see if anything's been missed, and to see if there's a consensus in certain facts and stats, because if not, it does make you question more, okay? So just bear with me. So this missing person, what else does it say? Last seen Lucin, Utah on the 25th, 2022. We're going back even more now. What? 19 years old, 5'10", 160 pounds, brown hair and eyes. Any information to his whereabouts are needed and asked for $20,000 reward. So now people are saying he was last seen on the 25th. So what about the 26th and the 27th? What, he never went to the bar? He went to the bar earlier? What's going on here? There's a lot of questions, isn't there? And as said, things might have changed since, but not everyone might know of every single update. So if you do know, and you feel it's important to correct, debunk, or whatever, feel free to leave a comment in the chat or the comment section as well, okay? That'll be appreciated. So far, we've got last seen on the 26th, last seen on the 28th, last seen on the 25th at the border. This is very messy so far. Move on to the next one. So this is a different type of profile. It's a little bit blurry, but I can just about read it, so I'll read it out to you. Missing person, Dylan Rounds, age 19, gender male, 5'10", £160, brown eyes, brown hair, last seen in Montello, Nevada, missing from Lucin, Utah. Okay. And then the date, last seen, the 5th month, 27th day, 2022. Now that, although it gives yet a different date compared to every single one so far, as said, 26th, 28th, 25th, and now the 27th he was last seen. This one follows more in line with what we know of. I know a few people thought Dylan was last seen the 26th, but then Candice at a point on Facebook provided an update along with the whole key fob situation way back then, okay, before all the other updates, which also included saying a correction was made. Dylan was not at the bar on the 26th, but on the 27th. So as you see, the dates keep switching and changing, and this is why you can't do a proper timeline just yet, because dates keep changing over and over again. So you need to be for certain, you need to be for definite of a specific date for a specific event of a certain individual, and then you can start constructing it. But right now, I don't think it's stable enough to do so. Is there any other writing down there? Well, I just want to check. Okay. So that one says his wallet and phone missing. Okay, just remember that. His wallet and phone missing. The wallet still has not been found from the looks of it. His phone supposedly has not been found, but there's been rumours on and off suggesting the phone has been found. Okay, that one doesn't mention anything about items. This one, what does it say? It's a bit hard to read. It says, according to the Bucks Elder County Sheriff's Office, detectives, and other various interviews, it is confirmed Dylan was last seen in Montello the evening of Friday, 27th of May at Saddle Saw Bar. Montello is about 30 miles west of Dylan's farm. All Dylan's vehicles were found on his farm in Lucin, Utah. The only items missing are his wallet and phone. Foul play is suspected. Search parties are being conducted. Please report any information. Okay. In the early parts of the search, a pair of boots belonging to Dylan were found tossed behind the dirt pile about 5 miles west of his farm. So for most part of it, this report kind of does tie in with what we know of. And the bit where it says about the phone and wallet not being found, that ties in with this report, this poster. Okay, so we've got a little bit of consistency. And as well, as I read over, it said the evening of Friday, Dylan was at Montello. And supposedly people say on the Friday, which was stated on here, after he got back from Montello, he then started planting seeds on his farm. Is that true? And chat, do you think that's practical? Late at night, doing something like that, a strenuous task, and then being very tired the following day. Is that practical? And as well, going to the bar, drinking, and then planting seeds. Is the performance still there? Is he going to seed and plant correctly if he's drunk or, a little bit under the influence of alcohol? You know what I'm saying? You know, it's just like little points like that could you infer from. Late at night, had the drinks, doing the seeding all of a sudden, tired, fairly tired physically, mentally, following day, the 28th, the day he went missing, the 30th, the day he was reported missing. Does that make sense? So this part would make sense and tie in with the whole concept of on the 27th, seen at the bar, Later on, planted the seeds. Following day, tired, fatigued, vulnerable, exposed, taken advantage of, couldn't fight back because he might be tired and sore. And that's how he went missing. That concept makes sense to me. Does it to you? Do you agree with that? Or do you have a different idea? Feel free to leave your thoughts down below. So let's move on to the next poster. Now, this one says last seen the 5th of the 26th in Montello, Nevada. So the dates differing once again. And what we've now seen introduced is the reward money upping from, as you see on this one, 20,000, the previous one, 20,000, and this one, 20,000. Now it is $100,000, bottom right corner of the screen. Okay. So what was the turning point for changing and increasing the money amount? Is it because they weren't receiving enough attention or help beforehand? So they thought, oh, we'll up the price, a lot more people will just suddenly rush on in. I don't know. I mean, if people really care, then they wouldn't be too mithered about the reward money. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people are different and everyone has their reasons, but you know, if it's the whole positivity, doing it for the community type behaviour, then this whole increasement of the money shouldn't have been necessary. Does that make sense? You know, like with Ty Lance, not doing it for the money, doing it to help the community, looking out for one another, makes sense, okay? Were Ty and Lance there from day one? Probably. I don't know 100% sure, but I guess so. But what about all the other people? Did all the other people just come on in when the price rose? Just another little question. It's worth, putting out there. If you know, feel free. Do you think it was worth increasing the reward money, or was it unnecessary? Anyway. So top right corner of the screen, yes, the text is very small, but I will read it out to you, okay? So it says, last seen, 5th the 26th, 2022, Montello, Nevada. Last contact with family, the 5th the 28th, 2022. So that does make sense. Yes, it does make sense. But there's a disparity with when he was last seen. So in terms of last known contact with family, the 28th, that does tie in kind of with this report, because from what we know of ourselves, he was planting seeds on the 27th, so he would have been tired. Following day, would have made the call to the grandparents, and as seen on here, this says the 27th. So that ties in as we agreed with that timeline. But on here it says he was last seen on the 26th. This says last seen on the 27th. So there's a disparity there. Why is that? I mean, you could argue, as said, if people are aware specifically of when these posters were created, you can put the argument across and say, this was the original poster, or this was the poster introduced before this one, okay, where corrections were made, so then they updated it to this, the 27th, instead of the 26th. So, kind of interesting. And we're seeing it how, so far, the dates keep switching back, forth. It tends to be the 26th or the 27th, but we saw that one, a previous one that said 25th, which is a bit interesting. So let's just move on to the next page. Oh yeah, as well, before I forget, the stats on screen, top right corner in the bullet points, it says age 19, height 5'10", weight 160 pounds, hair and eye colour brown. So that's remained the same. Now, what's this one about? So I think this was a Facebook post and it was on June the 1st. It says, please let us know if you have any known location of Chase Venstre. So, Dylan Rounds last seen in Lucin, Utah on the 25th. We're back to that again. Hold on a minute. Let me just go back. Which was the one what we saw on the 25th? This one. Okay. So, I believe this one must be that one. I assume. That says, please let us know if you have any known location of Chase Venstre. But that one doesn't. What? So it's like they've either shared or reshared the same poster because it's got the same design and photos and the date as well. But the text above it is different in the post to that one. So what's gone on there? Because it's like two lots of different posts. And there's been, maybe a slight adjustment? I don't know. But from the looks of it, June the 1st, people were under the impression that Dylan was last seen in Lucin, Utah on the 25th. On the 25th. What was he doing? Which was the one where it said... I don't know. Which one was it? Oh yeah, that one. On the Nevada border. So if you want to tie it all together, if you put aside the concept of when he was last seen, forget about that. Just in terms of the dates and from what we supposedly know of, the 25th, Dylan was spotted at the border between Nevada and Lucin. On the 26th, arguably on the 27th, he was at Saddle Saw Bar. And then later on, Friday, same day, if you say it was the 27th, he went to the bar, planting the seeds. Then the 28th, that's when he was last heard of, when he made the phone call on the farm near the grain shed, supposedly to the grandmother. Not heard of after that. Something must have happened. And then the 30th, when people come round, check, and then report him as missing. So that kind of fills in some of the blank spots, specifically the 25th, because, okay, the main hot spot is the 27th to the 30th, like a 2-3 day period, dependent. Okay, 2-3 day period of Dylan going missing. You remember when I did that video talking about what could have happened in those coming days? Planning, preparation, disposing, moving Dylan, hiding evidence and all that. You remember that? So now we're getting to see before the key hotspots of the 25th. It's interesting to know what was he doing on the 25th specifically, and is there any other dates, maybe like the 24th or the 23rd? What was he doing then, like beforehand? Was there any clues, hints, suggestions, anything dodgy going on? I don't know. Maybe you know. But we'll just see what else shows up within these posters. Now, on here, this must be an old one compared to the previous one, because that says $100,000. This one says $20,000 reward. So that must be an older one. So this was before that one, okay? I mean, it's one of those things, when you're on Facebook and you save the photos and pictures, they might not be in the correct order because, you know, as I said, when you're looking through Facebook, you get new and old posts muddled up all together. So you just, you know, gather what you can at a point in time. But as you see on screen, it says, person of interest, Chase Venstre, a $5,000 reward for his known location. Now, did anyone report Chase Venstre? Did anyone get that $5,000 reward? I mean, they said that Chase Venstre was at Park Valley and he got picked up by his father. And then what happened after that? Like, what specifically led to his arrest, and where was he arrested at? At his homestead? at Park Valley. Where? I know Robert Avalos was arrested further east of Lucin. Was it called Box Elder? Around that area, near to the lake area. That's where he was apprehended, supposedly. But what about Chase Venstra? And did anyone get the reward? And I said, back then, he's classified as a person of interest. But from what we know of now, that is a contradiction, because from what was said in recent time, he was never a part of the investigation of Dylan Rounds. He was just arrested on separate, non-related charges, being a felon, owning firearms. So why is this poster saying he's a person of interest? When someone's a person of interest, they are linked with the case in some way or another, whether it be behaviour demonstrated and shown by them, which hints at the idea that they could know about something, directly responsible or indirectly responsible. You know, their presence, their body language, what it gives off. They appear suspicious, appear like they're hiding something. Another way of being classified as a person of interest is when you just have information of what happened, okay? And it's like, right, we've got to hold on to you for questioning, because if you know something, that could help. You know, it ties you into the case if you have information or if you are a witness to something that happened with him. And then I think there's a third one as well, maybe having contacts, being in the presence of somebody else. I mean, I did do a video of this, the whole person of interest thing, previously, so you can check that out on my channel. It's one of my past videos, okay, where I talk the definition through and the different roles that can fulfill that, okay? So yeah, there we go for that poster. Let's move on to the next. Now this one, missing Dylan Rounds, BESO, Box Elder Sheriff's Office, I guess. Okay. What else? So it's email, Dylan Rounds, Lucin, Utah. Okay, so I don't know if you call this a missing poster, but from the looks of it, the style and format appears to be of one, a poster. But anyway, let me read it out to you. So it says, update, revised 6th of the 8th, 2022. Okay, so that's the following month after May, on the 8th day. Okay. 1. According to Box Elder Sheriff's Office detectives and following interviews, it is confirmed Dylan was last seen in Montello on the evening of Friday, the 5th to the 27th at Saddle Sore Bar. Montello is about 30 miles west of Dylan's farm. Ellie as not released by whom or where in Montello. Okay. Right. So it's saying has not released by whom or where in Montello. But I thought it said he was at Saddle Sore Bar, so that literally is where he was at. Or did they mean something afterwards? I don't know. And it says, number 2. In the early parts of the search, a pair of boots belonging to Dylan were found tossed behind this dirt pile about 5 miles west of his farm. Well, yeah, kind of. But this is the thing. Once again, it's language. I have an idea of what they're talking about. You probably have an idea of what they're talking about. But the language is poorly worded. It keeps saying Dylan's farm, but so do other YouTubers. And when people say Dylan's farm, they're talking about his place of living, which is 5 miles east. Okay? 5 miles east. And that's where his trailer's at. Dylan's grain shed, although he doesn't own the land, it's described as Dylan's grain shed, which is 5 miles west of Dylan's farm. Okay? Maybe that's what it's referring to here, but it's just poorly worded in my opinion. And as well, If that wasn't the case and they literally meant 5 miles, west, no, scrap that. But one thing it's not quite mentioning is how many yards from the grain shed. Some have said 200, other people have said 100. I think at the end of the day, it don't really matter. If there's a dirt mound near the grain shed, there's a dirt mound near the grain shed. And if the boots are placed there or chucked there, then that's why it is. Now, I don't know if it's worth getting into a separate conversation, but the other differing report has been the Dylan Rounds boots. Other people have said they're a spare pair of Dylan Rounds boots. And some people in recent time have said they're in fact Chase Venstras. Now, it makes sense more for Chase Venstra than Dylan Rounds because Chase Venstra was caught without any shoes on. So maybe he took them off and then ran through the desert. But what was he doing on Dylan Rounds or on the farmland? What was he doing near Dylan's farmland? What was he doing at Dylan's grain shed before Dylan went missing? Why would Chase Venstra need to be there anyway in the first place? And is he even allowed to be on there? That's what you got to ask yourself. And, shout out to Tiff or Tiffany, however you say their name, who raised that point in the last video. If Tiff is there right now, if they are Chase Venstra's shoes, boots, why are they there? And what was he doing there? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it ties him with the whole running across the desert with no shoes, but why was he at the grain shed? Was he already being chased down by the militia? Or was that further on? Further west, let's say. And as well, if the militia were in fact at the grain shed at the time, why were they passing through there? And are they even allowed access on that land? Because you've got the whole gate there as well. Or is it because Jim Brenner allowed them onto the land? Okay, you see where I'm going here? I mean, maybe there's other routes, areas in without the gate or access points like that, but if Chase Venstra was at the farm, the grain shed, if Chase Venstra was at the grain shed and he placed his boots, chucked them in a rush behind the dirt mound, surely James Brenner, also known as Jim Brenner, would have seen Chase Venstra on the land, right? So what's going on there? Never really thought about that. But there you go. Make sure to leave your comments and responses down below in the chat because these are some critical points, okay? These could definitely fill in the blanks here and there or reinforce previous existing points or debunk them. Either way, there could be some kind of movement. So, yeah, you got this poster, I guess. Let's move on to the next one. Missing person, Dylan Rounds, Idaho Falls, ID. All public information. So name, Dylan, missing the 5th to the 27th, 2022. Okay, that falls in line. Missing from Idaho Falls. Missing from. Does missing from mean where he was brought up, where he was born, maybe? Last known location, Montello, Nevada. Okay, saddle sore bar from the looks of it. DOB means date of birth. The 8th of the 1st, 2022. Age 19. Hair colour brown. Oh, here we go again. The height, 5'12". Okay, round that up, 6 foot. Weight, 160 pounds. Okay, that's still the same. But what you're now seeing is a disparity with the whole height situation. 5'10" to 6 foot. A bit of a step up between the two. And you could say, well, 5'10" and 5'12" isn't that bad. Round it up, 5'12" is basically 6 foot. 5'10" to 6 foot. There is a difference. There is definitely a difference visually. okay? So why are they switching and changing it once again? Let's say this is the updated report because it's saying the 27th. The previous poster confirmed it was the 27th. This one. So these two seem to be in line, level-headed, up-to-date type stuff. And yet the height has changed from the previous ones, such as that one, 5'10", that one, 5'10", that one 5'10", that one 5'10", that one 5'10", but all of a sudden he's suddenly gained an inch or two. Like, what is going on? Now, when you look at this height statistic, it ties in line with the NamUs report, which was, I guess, the latest missing person profile, I assume, at 6 foot. Okay. But when you look back at this and compare, his height remains at 160, but on NamUs, it's now 95 to 145. Why? Now, are they saying Dylan could be at max, at best, 145 pounds because he's missing, so he's not eating? He could be held captive, kidnapped, so he's going to lose weight. Is that what they mean? So if someone somehow managed to see Dylan walking around, whether he escaped, ran away or something, he's probably going to be underweight, very thin and unhealthy looking, a bit scrawny, not, very thin in the face and body. So is it more of an estimate of what he could weigh now compared to what he actually weighed back then? That's the only way I can interpret it in terms of that reading. In terms of the height, you can't just suddenly grow like that. Same age, past that point of development or getting to the maximum point of development maybe, but you don't really have a growth spurt like that, do you? I don't think you do. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. Anything else? Gender, he's still a male, that hasn't changed. Ethnicity, white. Complexion, fair. I think someone said that about me. Never mind. Police staff, Boxell County Sheriff's Office, yep. Officer name, Sergeant Yates. I've never heard of that name before mentioned. I've heard of Mr. Potter. Sounds like Harry Potter. Mr. Potter! Get here now! Read page 365 right now. I'm going off. But you get the idea, okay? Do any of you know Sergeant Yates? We heard his name mentioned before, maybe. Let's just see what else it says down below. It says 19-year-old Dylan Rounds of Idaho Falls, last seen Montello, 27th of May. Dylan is in daily contact with family, okay? Not been seen or heard from since May 27th. Hold on. Let's just carry on reading. So it's out of character. It's believed Dylan may have been wearing a dark sweatshirt or flannel, jeans and boots at the time of his disappearance. Okay. This is very important. Yeah. So it's saying on this report, he's not been seen or heard from since the 27th. Now, in terms of seen, that makes sense. He was last seen on the 27th at Saddle Sore Bar. But saying he was not heard of as well is incorrect because he was last heard from on the 28th, the day later, the day on since he was last seen. Because on the 28th, that's when he made the phone call to the grandparents, okay? And yet this report is saying he never made contact with the grandparents on the 28th. Do you see how fucking wacky this is? And as well, if you want to throw in the comparison with the whole clothing situation with the later NamUs report, there's a difference once again. Aside from the whole height weight situation, the clothing on the NamUs report, clothing is not listed. NA, not available. And yet this report suggests that he was wearing a dark sweatshirt or flannel, jeans and boots. So why wasn't that included? You know, I raised that question back then, and you know, you can give your thoughts in a chat. Isn't it important to provide as much information as possible to ensure a high success rate? You need to know, or at least have an idea of what the individual could be wearing, because people can conceal themselves with clothing, their body type, their face. If they're wearing a baseball cap, it'll hide part of their face. If they're wearing jeans and a hoodie, it's going to cover their build. You know, you've seen bodybuilders wearing, you know, like a jumper or a loose hoodie. You lose sense of their true size, their muscle, because it's not showing. It's covered by baggy, loose clothing. So if Dylan is wearing his own clothes, depending on his weight at the time, and the concealment of the hat, you might not see him as well. He might blend in a bit more. But if you know Dylan tends to wear that type of clothing, and then you saw a person wearing that, then, you know, you could report him missing. You could question him. You could, I don't know, confront him or something. It's just extra information which can go a long way. And yet it was failed to be included in the NAMUS report, which is a bit weird. It's what I don't understand. And the whole thing about he was last heard on the 27th or before, and not on the 28th, that's just weird. Like, why are you cancelling that out? You know, is that yet something else that didn't happen? Or did they get, like, a mistake? Did they get something wrong? It's a bit dodgy. Anyway, let's move on. Now this one, you might have seen this one, to be honest. I think I might have read it out before, but we'll just read it again. Attention hunters. I guess it's because the hunting season, people out and about, they might be on the lookout for animals, but they should also be on the lookout for maybe a person. So I guess that's the whole point. It reads, please be on the lookout. Watch for anything suspicious that could help locate or solve the criminal disappearance of Dylan Rounds from Lucin, Utah. Dylan Rounds went missing from his farm in Lucin, Utah on May 28th, 2022. That's correct. Foul play is suspected, and a suspect is in custody on unrelated charges, which I assume is James Brenner, or at least Chase Venstra. Dylan is 20 years old, 5'10", 160 pounds, with brown hair and eyes. He most likely had on jeans, a flannel shirt, and no boots. What? If you see anything suspicious, like newly dug ground or articles of clothing, please take a photo and do not disturb it. Contact law enforcement below as soon as possible. You see, once again, what is going on? So the whole bit about 28th of May was last, how is it worded? Where's Utah May? It doesn't say when he was last seen or when he was last heard of. They just literally said the 28th of when he went missing. Okay. And he was reported missing on the 30th. Okay. This one says Dylan is 20 years old, and yet all the other reports say he's 19 years old. So I assume this is one of the later profiles, you know, updating his age of what he now is. Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. But now, despite this being the latest report, he's gone back down in height. You know, way back then, he's 5'10". And then a bit later, he's gone up to 6 foot, man. He's 6 foot tall. And now he's gone back down again to 5'10". What's this? Jack and the fucking beanstalk. Jack climbing up, down. Make your mind up. Get the tape measure out and measure correctly. Oh my. Do you see how even with the more up-to-date reports, the stats, the facts keep switching, changing, reverting back to original stats? It's a bit of a mess, to be honest, even up to this point. And the only interesting thing is the consistency with this one is when it was talking about the clothing to an extent. Because this one, as said he was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. This one said he had jeans and a flannel shirt or a sweatshirt, one or the other. Okay. But this one said he had boots on at the time of his disappearance. And yet this one says he's got no boots on. So it's like, what? Why? Now, you can interpret it one way and put the counterpoint across saying, well, if this is one of the later updated posters of Dylan, they are assuming that he's got no boots on because they were found dumped behind the dirt mound. Okay, that makes sense. He's on the run, or he's been taken somewhere or taken out, and he's no longer got his shoes on because they've been found elsewhere. And supposedly, lab reports say it's Dylan's blood on the boots. But did they say they're Dylan's boots as well? Key question, because we're tying back to Tiff or Tiffany with what she said about them being Chase Venstra's. Then you could say, well, why does Chase Venstra have boots at that spot with, confirmed by the police and the lab reports, Dylan's blood on Chase Venstra's boots? Do you see how weird that is? And if you tie in the fact that Chase Venstra is an innocent person and hasn't been, charged or connected to the investigation of Dylan Rounds from the beginning. He was never a part of the investigation of Dylan Rounds to start off with, from what the police has said. And yet they're saying that the blood is from Dylan and that they were found on Dylan's boots, supposedly. But then Tiffany is saying that those boots are Chase Venstra's. So then what? Chase Venstra was responsible for taking out Dylan, hence why blood splattered on his boots. And then they were dumped behind the mound. And then what? The militia chased after Chase Venstra. What? Do you see how muddled it can be? Maybe one of you can deconstruct that and arrange it more appropriately, but there's all kinds of different scenarios going on. And I'll give my brief opinion. So if those boots, from what Tiffany said, are Chase Venstra's and they're behind the dirt mound, okay, that could tie in with Chase being chased down by the militia. But in terms of if the blood is of Dylan and they were found on Chase Venstra's boots, then does that tie in with why the police are just saying, oh, Chase Venstra was never a part of the investigation to begin with of Dylan, because the police know Chase Venstra is responsible? They still charged him on unrelated crime because it was necessary to follow through with procedure, but they wanted to lessen his punishment because they know he was responsible and they have ties to Chase Venstra in the past, the corrupt police department with Chase. Do you see? Fuck me. Leave your thoughts down below in the chat because there's a lot to analyse, right? But yeah, just in general, once again, this poster on screen right now, clothing mentioned, and yet it was failed to be included in the NAMOS report. That's not good. You know what I'm saying? That's not good. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so I think now we're just moving on to just a few little text conversations and stuff. It might be a bit out of sync in terms of the dates, but I'll read them out anyway. Supposedly from Denise Cooley. Missing Dylan Rounds, 19, Idaho Falls, ID. 19-year-old Dylan Rounds of Idaho Falls, Idaho, was last seen in Montello, Nevada, the evening of May 27th, 2022. Okay, that ties in. Dylan is in daily contact with the family and has not been seen or heard from since May 27th, which is out of character and very concerning. It is believed Dylan may have been wearing a dark sweatshirt or flannel jeans and boots at the time of his disappearance. If you saw Dylan Rounds in Montello, Nevada, or near his farm in Lucin, Utah, on or about May 27th, please contact. Okay, not too much difference there. And then what's this one? Katie Rounds Wells, some person called Jason, okay, says, we seen him Friday. My family lives down there. Papa Kurt is like his best friend. We will help in any way we can. So I assume when Jason says Papa Kurt, he means Kurt Wadsworth, because technically Kurt Wadsworth is good friends with Dylan Rounds, supposedly. Now Jason himself says he saw him on Friday with the family. I assume that must be in Montello, the Saddle Sore Bar. They must have been all there. Jessica says, "Did you see this note?" That must be something else. Katie replies back saying, "Yes, we were with Kurt today. Thank you." Okay, is that it? Okay, that's it. So, after seeing all that, the differing posters, stats, bullet points, bits of information, etc., dates, what are your thoughts on it? What do you believe in? What do you think is true? Or do you think it's all a lie and there is something else going on? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the chat, in the comment section if you've got additional thoughts. I'm going to give you my take right now. So the way I see things, because I've seen posters here and there, because I wasn't at the beginning of the whole mystery missing person case, I missed out part of the progression and timeline, okay? Like live, they're witnessing it as it's unfolded. So I've missed out that portion. But when reflecting backwards at all the different posters, even if they aren't arranged or organised correctly, what I would say is it's understandable that some of the posters might be old and outdated, and with time, updates were provided, information was validated, corrected, dates were changed and reinforced, such as the whole 26th, 27th dispute, that being confirmed eventually that it was the 27th he was last seen, okay? But, and there is a but, even when it comes to the latest missing person posters, they end up, either confirming, correcting one thing, but then going back on another thing, such as the height or the weight, the clothing. 1 minute boots, next minute not. 1 minute 5'10", then 6 foot, now 5'10". Back forth. 1 minute he was last seen then, which was the incorrect date, now confirmed and corrected. Back then he was last heard of then, but now that's not even mentioned now and completely taken out of the equation. So, people can say, oh, that's outdated, this is up to date. And my response is, sure, this is outdated, this is up to date, and yet now it's taken out key information that was originally mentioned in a previous report, which is still valid, and yet why take it out now? I don't know. You can leave your thoughts down below, but it's very dodgy. It's a bit all over the place. I sense there might be resistance from some people, okay? Bit on the spot, but I'm just going to mention it anyway. Observation, because I do that with humans. I sense a couple of humans will be like, oh, what's the whole point of all this? Oh, this is all useless. We've heard all this information before. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But you can clearly see the inconsistencies and the changes and the switching and changing of information, which we've seen on a bigger scale regarding other stuff, like with the key fob originally, and maybe other things too, okay? I can imagine some people probably come in saying, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, man. And it's like, well, I'm just saying what is visually there or what I've heard relaying stuff. That's all one can do, okay? So I think I'll leave the video there for now. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more information about switches and changes in the future, more present day stuff. But to be able to look back and see the extent, you get a better idea. And maybe for some of you, it might fill in blank spots on the timeline you've been looking at. Maybe you didn't know about certain stuff. Maybe you didn't know that Dylan supposedly was seen on the border on the 25th. No one's really mentioned that before or brought that up since. So was that just completely random, a complete big mistake? I mean, there's a difference between the 25th and the 27th. It's a different day. But How could people get that wrong back then? Or was it an actual, piece of activity on that day? And if it was, you could say, what happened between, instead of saying what happened between the 27th and the 30th, why not say what happened between the 25th and the 27th? What happened in that little time frame leading up to the disappearance of Dylan? Because that could be another key one. If it's a grudge, or if it's something planned, maybe not, I don't know. But did anyone else come involved in between that date before Dylan went missing? Did Dylan act out? Was there any changes in his behaviour, tone of voice? Was he doing anything unusual? Was he packing up? Was he doing anything which is different to what he normally does? Aside from the whole contact thing, which people brought up in those posters later on. What happened before then? Okay, so as said, if you've got additional points or you want to correct anything, you've got questions, thoughts, whatever it may be, you can leave that down below in the comments section. Okay, and I'll take a look at those comments later. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it if you're in the chat for most part of the video. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Good night and goodbye.